Look out, y'all. Your boy Ash. I'm gonna keep this thing going. Uh, let's talk about Canelo versus Angulo. Now, I'm with the majority of people out there who thinks this is not pay-per-view worthy. It's not. Uh, but they're banking on Canelo star power. Once again, the business of boxing taking over. But the good point, the good thing about it is that at least the fight was made. It's a competitive fight. In boxing, you got to be able to deal with all styles. And I think it's a style that Canelo is not accustomed to facing. Um, he's accustomed to facing guys who box. He boxes fairly well himself. He's not the most fluid on his feet, but he's good enough to get the job done. Plus, he has decent hand speed. I'm not even gonna say it's decent. Dude got some real good hand speed, and he can punch. And it's not like he throws one punch at a time. Once he's found his target, and he puts him in a position where he can let combinations go. He does just that. He throws in combination. Against a target like Mayweather, I mean, everybody, Mayweather is the bar, but everybody can't move like Mayweather. Everybody can't duck and dodge punches like Mayweather, and they're not nearly as elusive. And he doesn't have to run all the way around the damn ring just to get away from punches. I mean, all you need to do is move just a little bit, just so the punch misses you. So it's Angulo, and what we know about Angulo is that he puts a lot of pressure on guys, walk guys down. It's fairly flat-footed, but after being with Virgil Hunter, they're trying to get him to box a little more. I think that's a mistake in trying to change too much about Angulo. You just need to fix the flaws. And everybody is not meant to box. This is the fight game, It's an interesting clash of styles. You know what I'm saying? And styles make fights. Sometimes a pressure fighter beats the boxer. More times than not, the boxer beats the pressure fighter. I think Angulo brings certain things to the table that Canelo hasn't seen. I mean, we normally see Canelo cut the ring off, but Angulo is the guy who actually comes forward. He's usually the guy who is the aggressor. He has heavy hands, and he's not afraid to let his hands go. He does lead with a jab, but it's usually just to find the range so he can close the distance on you, close the gap, get you at a point where he can just let his hands go. And once he begins to touch you, the power that he possesses begins to do the work for him. It's not like he has to beat you down over a series of rounds and rounds and rounds. Usually once he hits you flush, he can hurt you. And it's basically your level of skill, your wherewithal, and your ability to survive big shots, which pretty much determines if you can weather that onslaught, that storm. And Angulo's a pretty tough guy. The one thing I say about Angulo is that if you don't have enough power to get his respect, you're going to be in for a tough night. I can think back to one of my first videos on YouTube. It's not on there no more. I erased a lot of videos I did back in the past. Angulo versus Kermit Cintron, and I picked Cintron to outbox Angulo. And it's not that Cintron is the best boxer in the world. He was a big guy, he was rangy, and he could punch. You know what I'm saying? He could punch and he can get Angulo's respect. And I knew being with Ronnie Shields, he was going to address a lot of the flaws that Kermit Cintron had prior to to training in Houston and getting sparring down here in Houston. I knew Ronnie Shields was going to address those things, and I was one of the few to pick Kermit Cintron to beat Angulo. And when I did the post-fight video, I touched on how everybody was comparing Angulo to Margarito, to which I pointed out why that was wrong. That I said Margarito knows how to effectively cut off the ring. Margarito knows how to throw punches in volume, and Margarito knows how to. I just went over the uh, the things that Margarito did well. Um, because everybody was saying that Angulo was Margarito times two, and I just disagree with that. Not saying I was a big Margarito fan. I've never made a video praising Margarito ever, but I did not take credit away from what Margarito did well. That was the video where I gave Margarito credit and bashed Angulo in that loss. But I wasn't just trying to say Angulo was trash. The bottom line is that, at that time they were hyping Angulo to be what he wasn't, or he wasn't yet. He still needed the experience. And it was based on those early fights, people began to overrate him. And that's back when he was with Gary Shaw. They were fighting on Showtime. And the guys that he was beating, he wasn't supposed to beat, but the way he was beating them, he was destroying them. So a lot of the fans, when they see guys with big power and who was able to basically open guys up with damn near every punch that he throws, they begin to throw accolades at fighters that aren't deserved. They haven't deserved them yet. And that's what I was saying at that time. But from that time to now, Angulo has pretty much solidified himself as a very good fighter and a very strong fighter at this weight. And I think that's what makes it a good fight against Canelo, because for a long time we've been basically waiting on Canelo to fight guys at his weight. He'd been fighting guys that were blowing up in weight, taking guys up a different weight class, taking guys up two weight classes so they can continue to market his appeal to the public. It was business. It wasn't boxing. And on top of that, he ended up fighting for a title for a guy who wasn't even a 54-pounder. But that's an old video. This is not a rant video. But I think in the fight with Trout, he proved that he can fight and beat guys at his weight who are very good. And I think this is another fight in that direction. I think people will take credit away from Canelo based on the fact that he was dominated by Floyd Mayweather. But people shouldn't base how good Canelo is on the Mayweather outing. Mayweather dominates everybody. It's just the way it is. Been doing that for years. This is not a video where everybody want to come in. Mayweather ducks. Damn all that. This is not the video for that. There's another platform for that. And I'm not defending Mayweather in any way, shape, or form. I got a video talking about him. But all of my videos are not going to be rants about this guy. At the end of the day, he's fighting. And we watch boxing. Let's watch the fight. Anyway, this isn't even about Mayweather. This is about Canelo. Redemption fight. He lost his title. It knocked a little luster off of his shine. He was undefeated, and now he has a defeat on his ledger, and he has to basically prove to everybody that he is whatever with the media and of course his promotional team, his business team has touted him to be. And he is very skillful. And I think this is a very solid test for a comeback, especially for a comeback fight. Angulo fight is a tough fight for guys who are active. Because as you see Laura fight him, Laura didn't lose before fighting Angulo. At least if I'm not mistaken. He wasn't on a losing streak. And the only loss that he has on his record, I believe, was to Paul Williams, which was not a loss. He beat Paul Williams and got robbed. Y'all going to have to check the box rec for me. I'm going off the top of my head again. But he's basically undefeated. Some people thought he lost to goddamn, what's the Molina, but I think a lot of the body work Laura was doing in that fight with Molina was overlooked too, because Molina attacks in straight lines. And Laura was timing him with body shots as he came in, and people didn't even acknowledge that. I'm not saying Laura legitimately won, or I'm not even talking about that. I'm just saying a lot of his inside work was overlooked because they were used to Laura just dominating from the outside, being a slick Cuban southpaw boxer. Anyway, the fight with Canelo. We know what Canelo does well. He's a very good boxer puncher. He's usually the guy that's chopping guys down. He's usually the guy that's chopping guys down. He's usually the guy that's cutting off the ring and setting up jabs to get it to force his way inside, throwing combinations, especially if you end up getting pent up against the rope. That's the worst place for you to be against Canelo. But I don't think he'll have to worry about that with Angulo. I think this is actually a fight that Canelo is going to have to show his ability to move. Angulo is not going to be backed up unless you are a fighter who comes forward with power and strength, like a James Kirkland. And that's not Canelo. Even though he's strong and he can punch, he doesn't fight like that. Where his whole MO is to walk you down, chop you down, and beat on you and maul you to death. That's not his style. He's a boxer puncher. Kirkland is not. And Kirkland is a southpaw too. A southpaw guy who comes to fight, who walks you down, cuts the ring off, a brawler. That's not Angulo. He's a boxer puncher. So I think this fight is really going to show us what Angulo is about. He's shown he could beat boxers. He's shown he could fight southpaws, even though that's not what he's dealing with in this fight. But is actually letting you know who he is as a fighter. Not everybody can fight against lefties. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody knows how to deal with slick fighters. Know how to deal with slick boxers. Not everybody know how to deal with pressure fighters. But we'll see what Canelo can do. And I think in this fight, I think Angulo's going to actually get to him. And I think he's going to hurt Canelo. I think he will touch Canelo. But I think Canelo will find a way to weather that storm. And once he starts getting off on Angulo and the rounds start going by, I think the tides will slowly begin to turn and Canelo will do enough to win the fight on points. Because I think if you can get Angulo with enough big shots from a big puncher, he will begin to wilt. And that pressure begins to back up a little. He begins to slow up on that pressure, especially like he did against Cintron. You didn't see him walking Cintron down that whole time. He began to respect that power. And I think he's going to respect that power against Canelo, especially considering the fact that Canelo is a real 54-pounder. I mean, I know he initially began campaigning at welterweight, but making weight for him at welterweight was never easy. And making weight for him at 54 is beginning to be a little bit more harder and harder and harder because he's a big boy. He's a really, really big boy. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say Canelo wins by decision. It's a pay-per-view fight. It's a good fight. It's an all-Mexican showdown. And I think that's coming up next month, if I'm not mistaken. Your boy, young Jermall Charlo's on the undercard. He's fighting against Molina, a guy I mentioned earlier. In that fight, I know everybody is accustomed to seeing Molina get in the ring with skilled guys, taking what they do well and making it work against them. Because Molina's not the biggest puncher, but he's a strong guy. He's a strong fighter. He's not necessarily the biggest puncher, but he wears you down. He attacks in straight lines, but even when he's at a distance, it's hard to even place that jab on him because he make little subtle movements here and there, left and right, avoiding the shot. He's not the most slick guy. Well, he's not slick at all, but he knows how to catch punches in his gloves. He knows how to move and avoid shots from a distance. And he's not the best guy with timing guys with shots. He time guys when you throw a punch, he begins to come in right after your punch. As you bring your punch back, he's coming forward, closing that distance on you so he can do his work on the inside. That's where primarily most of his work gets done. Once he's closed that distance, he mauls you on the inside, holds you. Some people say he's a little dirty. He is. He gets his elbows in and his forearms in as he can get them. A lot of guys do that, and the thing about doing it is getting them in a very subtle way, where the referee can't see it. It's only cheating if you do it flagrantly or you do it like, I'm fouling this guy, please give me my exit out of the fight. It's only cheating when you get caught. But the more skilled guys have found a way to get their elbows in and get those forearms in, even headbutts in a way where the referee can't see it. That's Molina. And as he begins to outwork you on the inside through the course of the fight, you begin to fade on the scorecard, and before you know it, you've lost the fight. Wondering how the hell it happened, or I think he should have did a little bit more. No, he fought his fight. And at the end of the day, you score the fight based on the guy who fights his fight. If you're a guy that's primarily accustomed to fight on the outside, and the fight was an inside fight, and you weren't scoring any points, you lose. But I think in this fight with young Maul is accustomed to fighting from a distance. He's a very good boxer puncher. But one thing that guys don't know is because they haven't seen a lot of Jermall, one of the Charlos, is that Jermall got an inside game too. But you know, I've only seen it in sparring. I've seen him spar hundreds of times, him and Jermall. I'm not, and Jermall got an inside game, a big inside game too, and he got a big right hand. And he hasn't fought enough solid guys in his career where everybody would give him the credit for having a big punch. But everybody who he gets in the ring with feels that right hand. He's able to slow guys down, knock guys down, stop guys. And you could take some recent fighters that he's fought. A guy who fought Keith Thurman, I think it's Laura, not Laura, the Cuban, but the Mexican. I think his name was Orlando Laura. I don't know. I think Malignaggi fought him too. And Jermall knocked him out faster than Keith Thurman. And then his last fight against that Colombian guy, that Colombian guy took J. Leon Love the distance, and young Maul chopped him up within 7 rounds, under 7 rounds. So that's how you have to gauge him, based on the guys that he fought. That's fought other guys who are highly touted. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying he's better than anybody. I'm just saying if he's not better than them, he's along the same lines as those guys, at least until those guys begin to fight each other. And he's only had 17 fights. It's on a 7-fight KO streak as far as 2013. But I think he's on actually an 11-fight KO streak in terms of 11 straight fights knocking guys out. I could be wrong. Box record, I'm not sure. But it wouldn't surprise me, because when Jermall gets to touching guys, shit start happening on their face. He start busting them up, And the thing about it, he haven't even shown y'all what he can do yet. He's only doing enough, and what he's been doing has been more than enough, because guys not even giving him rounds. So what do you do when you get a guy who you trying to get seasoned, and the guys that you put in the ring with him are tough guys, not world beaters, but guys that will give you rounds and, continue to season guy at the professional rank, and Jermall just knocking him out? What do? You increase the competition. So it's no big secret as to why he got the title fight. Same with Vargas. Vargas, when he was coming up, he was knocking everything out. Guys that was supposed to give Fernando Vargas rounds, he was chopping them up in the distance. They wouldn't even see the distance. He was knocking them out. It's the same thing. It's just Vargas was doing it on a much bigger scale. He was doing it on HBO versus Jermall. He's doing it on Fox Sports. You're not going to get the same audience, and you're not going to be seen by the masses coming up through the ranks. HBO versus a Fox. HBO is, they are the premier boxing network in the sport. So of course more people saw that. Most people bought into Vargas, plus Vargas was an Olympian. They could properly market and promote him. Everybody loves a hometown hero, and he was a big puncher. So all the things were working in his favor to promote him. Jermall just got on with Al Heyman. It was a point in time where he didn't have no manager, no promoter, and Jermall did. Jermall was with Golden Boy the whole time, and Jermall wasn't with nobody. He was taking fights as he can get them. So I seen this coming. I knew once he got on with somebody who had a name, a promotion outfit, y'all were going to see what he can do. Still haven't shown you everything he can do, but I think a guy like Molina is going to bring it out of him. He's very strong. I know you see him, and he seems like a tall, slender kid, but don't underestimate the dude's strength, and he do got that dog in him. You're not going to just hit him with a big shot and he going to wilt. Jermall can box, but to me, from what I've seen in sparring and stuff like that, he's much more dangerous when he begin to walk you down. And you haven't seen that yet. He haven't even shown you that. But I've seen it in the gym. And when he walk you down, you got problems. But I think Molina is crafty enough to make it a very good fight. And I'm not saying Molina can't win. Both guys could win. It's a winnable fight for both. And I think Molina is crafty enough to get away from, certain shots that Jermall throws, that any fighter throws, and make it a much tougher than expected fight. I just don't see Molina getting his fight game going enough to win the fight by scoring points like he does against everybody else. I don't think he's going to outwork Jermall. I don't think Jermall's going to let him outwork him. I think he wants that title enough that even if the fight turns into an ugly fight and it becomes a fight in the trenches, I think Young Maul is going to find a way to get his in regardless. So I'm going to pick Jermall by decision in that fight. But I think if somebody touches canvas, it ain't going to be Jermall. I could be wrong, though. I could be totally wrong. I like Molina, and I give him all the credit. I wrote a story about him a long time ago, talking about how he got robbed against Chavez back when he used to campaign as a 47-pounder. Chavez used to campaign as a welterweight as well as Molina. I talked about his struggles when he was with Don King, how he had struggles getting fights and had to take fights as he can get them, and how he's always been a tough outing for guys who actually can fight. And I don't expect anything different in this particular fight as well. If he can beat Jermall, I'm going to give him a lot of credit because I've seen Jermall just step on guys in the gym, guys with names, champions. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not here to name drop. That ain't never been my style, but I've seen it with my own eyes. And even Shane Mosley have sparred. Shane be everywhere. But I've never seen him spar against Shane, but Shane has been here and he sparred with him here. And of course, he flew Jermall out to California for sparring too for one of his outings. I forget which one it was. And even Shane said that Jermall will be world champion. We'll see if those words will be proven prophetic in this fight with Molina. But I'm going to go ahead and say Jermall goes ahead and brings that IBF title back to the H. At least making one of their prophecies true, as one of the Charlos will be champions first, and then of course the other one has aspirations of doing the same thing, and he's skilled enough to do the same thing. Both of them are skilled enough to win titles, but fights are won in the ring, not on YouTube, and definitely not in the press or on the microphone. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick Canelo by decision in a tougher than expected fight, and Young Maul by decision in a tougher than expected fight. And let me know what you think. Get at me, Ash.